Let's be honest, most of the pain you feel every day is a complete waste of energy. That frustration in traffic, the sting of a critical comment, your anxiety about the future, what if it's all just reinforcing the very things that keep you stuck? There is, however, a radical idea from the philosopher Gurdjieff called intentional suffering, and it's a practical method for turning all that friction into fuel for profound self-awareness. In this video, we're going to explore how to stop wasting your suffering and start using it to wake up. Section 1. The Sleep of Mechanical Life. Think about it. When life throws a punch of conflict at work, a thoughtless word from a partner, a flash of self-criticism, what's our first instinct? For most of us, it's a painfully predictable cycle. We complain, we vent, we spiral into self-pity. We distract ourselves, scrolling through our phones, looking for any temporary escape. We might even nurse the grudge, replaying the event in our minds, polishing our own righteousness. This, according to the mystic and philosopher Gurdjieff, is useless suffering. It's the pain of a machine. Gurdjieff argued that most of us live our lives in a state of waking sleep, functioning like complex biological robots. We believe we're conscious and in control, but in reality, our actions, thoughts, and feelings are just conditioned responses to whatever life throws at us. An internal button gets pushed and our automated reaction follows. We aren't one unified self, but a chaotic committee of disconnected eyes, each one grabbing the microphone for a moment before getting shoved aside by the next. One eye wants to be productive, another wants to be lazy. One eye feels confident, another is crippled by doubt. This inner civil war is the source of our mechanical suffering. And this useless suffering, it's completely unproductive. It's a massive energy leak. Imagine a car engine with a dozen holes in its fuel line. The engine sputters, fumes, and makes a lot of noise, but it doesn't actually go anywhere. The energy is just wasted. Complaining about a past hurt doesn't resolve it. It just reinforces the victim story. Wallowing in self-pity doesn't build strength. It deepens the groove of helplessness. This kind of suffering doesn't lead to growth. It only tightens the chains of our own mechanical nature, keeping us asleep and dreaming that we are awake. Section 2. The radical idea of the fourth way. So if that's the problem, what's the way out? This is where Gurdjieff introduces a truly radical alternative. He called his teaching the fourth way. Unlike the traditional paths of the fakir, mastery over the body, the monk, mastery over the heart, and the yogi, mastery over the mind, the fourth way doesn't ask you to withdraw from the world. Instead, it teaches that real transformation has to happen right here in the middle of ordinary life by working on your body, heart, and mind all at once. The two pillars of this work are concepts Gurdjieff called conscious labor and intentional suffering. Conscious labor is about making a deliberate effort against your own autopilot. It's doing what needs to be done with full presence. But it's the second pillar, intentional suffering, that holds the real key to transforming your relationship with pain. Gurdjieff made a sharp distinction between the useless suffering we all know so well and intentional suffering. Intentional suffering is not about seeking out pain for its own sake. It's not masochism. It is the conscious choice to bear the friction that life inevitably provides without running away or complaining for the specific purpose of waking up. It means turning toward the discomfort, not away from it. Gurdjieff taught that without this voluntary fire, no real inner development is possible. It is the force that can shatter our hypnotic sleep and forge something permanent and real inside of us. Section 3. The core principles of inner alchemy. To really get this, imagine two blacksmiths. Both stand before identical forges, facing the same scorching heat, the same stubborn metal, and the same heavy hammer. The first blacksmith curses the fire and complains about the smoke. He resents the ache in his shoulders. He hammers erratically, driven by frustration, and what he makes is a warped, brittle tool that will crack under the slightest pressure. This is useless suffering. The second blacksmith feels the same heat and the same fatigue, but he accepts them as part of the work. He stays present with each strike of the hammer, using the resistance of the metal to guide his actions. He channels the fire and the weight of the hammer with intention. And slowly he forges a tool that is strong, balanced, and built to last. This is intentional suffering. The friction is identical. The outcome is not. Intentional suffering works like a kind of inner alchemy. Gurdjieff explained that many of our knee-jerk psychological processes, like complaining, self-pity, and mindless anger, can only exist in the dark. The moment you shine the light of conscious, impartial observation on them, they start to change. This is the practice of non-identification. It's recognizing that you have an emotion, but you are not the emotion itself. When a wave of anger or anxiety rises, the mechanical reaction is to become it, to get swept away. The practice of intentional suffering is to stand firm and observe the wave rising and falling within you without being carried out to sea. You feel the full force of the discomfort, but you refuse to react automatically. You simply bear it. This bearing isn't passive. It's an active, conscious choice that creates a tiny space between stimulus and response. And in that space, something new is born. The energy that would have been wasted on a negative outburst or an internal pity party is instead contained and transformed. This is the fire that forges a unified, conscious I from all the scattered, warring fragments of your personality. Section 4. Practical application. From friction to fuel, this might sound abstract, but it's intensely practical. It happens in the small, frustrating moments of daily life. Take a classic scenario: someone cuts you off in traffic. The mechanical reaction is instant, a surge of anger, a muttered curse, maybe a fantasy of revenge. Your heart races, your body tenses. You might spend the next 10 minutes replaying the injustice, feeding your own indignation. This is useless suffering. All that energy is just squandered reinforcing your sense of being wronged. Now, let's apply intentional suffering. The car cuts you off. You feel that same initial surge of anger. But instead of letting it fly, you turn your attention inward. You observe the heat in your chest, the clench in your jaw, the angry thoughts storming your mind. You don't judge them or suppress them, but you also don't act on them. You consciously choose to bear the discomfort of the irritation without letting it leak out. You stay present with the inner friction. This is an act of intentional suffering. The energy of that anger, instead of being wasted, becomes fuel for your self-awareness. Here's another one. You're trying to tackle a difficult task, and the urge to procrastinate is overwhelming. The siren song of social media, a snack in the kitchen, any distraction will do. The mechanical path is to give in, to escape the discomfort of the effort. Intentional suffering is choosing to stay with the task. You acknowledge the resistance, the boredom, the desire to flee, and you consciously endure it. This very act of struggling against your own impulses generates the friction needed for growth, building real will and discipline. Or think about the pain of a grudge. We often think of suffering as something we want to get rid of, but Gurdjieff might say we secretly love our suffering. We love the familiar story of how we were wronged. Giving up that grudge, sacrificing the perverse comfort of that story, is a higher form of intentional suffering. It requires you to face the empty space it leaves behind and bear the discomfort of letting go of a part of your identity. In every case, you aren't creating new pain. You're using the suffering that life already provides: frustration, boredom, resentment as your raw material. You're intentionally placing yourself in the fire, not to get burned, but to be transformed. Section 5. The transformation, the benefit of waking up. So what's the payoff for all this hard work? It's nothing less than a fundamental transformation of your being. By consistently practicing intentional suffering, you stop the constant leakage of your vital energy into useless, negative states. That conserved energy then becomes available for higher purposes. It nourishes your presence, your consciousness, and your will. You start to crystallize a real, indivisible I that can stand firm in the chaos of your inner and outer life. You're no longer a ship at the mercy of every wave, but the captain who can navigate the storm. The goal isn't to eliminate suffering. That's an unavoidable part of life. The goal is to stop wasting it. The goal is to use it. When you learn to endure difficulty without complaint, you develop resilience. When you observe your own negativity without judgment, you cultivate compassion for yourself and others. When you face life's friction head-on, you develop a deep respect for reality. You stop demanding that life be easy and instead learn to draw strength from its challenges. As Helen Keller wrote, "Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, vision cleared, ambition inspired, and success achieved. Intentional suffering is the very method for doing precisely that. Ultimately, the suffering in your life is inevitable, but its value is a choice. Most of our daily pain is simply wasted energy, reinforcing the prison of our mechanical habits. But it doesn't have to be that way. Gurdjieff's radical idea of intentional suffering offers a practical way to turn this lead into gold. It teaches us to stop running from friction and start using it as fuel. By consciously bearing the unavoidable discomforts of life without complaint or escape, we can transform that energy into self-awareness, inner unity, and profound personal growth. Suffering stops being a dead end and becomes the very path to waking up. The question then isn't if you will suffer. The question is, will you keep wasting your suffering or will you start to use it? What's a small daily irritation in your life that you could use as your first practice for intentional suffering? Share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. Let's explore this together. Be on the lookout for episode 10, our last episode of the Gurdjieff's Essential Teaching series.